Welcome to episode 48 of Think Big with Michael Zellner, all positive, no politics. My guest today is Heather Hakes. Heather is a speaker, a mindset coach, an author, and a podcaster. She has been featured in numerous publications in her career. Her specialty is helping people get out of their own way. And she is a personal trainer for your mind. She's the author of the book, Take the Leap. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Michael, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today. So tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know.
Oh gosh, where would we start? I guess the biggest thing is that I would love to highlight, because I feel like so many people, when we became adults and all this adulting, we forgot what it was like to be in joy and have fun and imagination. And for me, it's so interesting what came full circle. A dream of mine as a young girl, I always wanted to be a teacher. My dad built me a playhouse when I was 7 years old, and I used to torture my brother and my cousins. We had chalkboards back then, but I used to torture them, and I was always the teacher and playing dress up, and I loved it until I got to college and found out they made 35 grand a year. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work.
Right.
And so I ended up getting, a basic communication and marketing degree. And then I got my paralegal and worked in corporate for 10 years. Long story short, left that because it wasn't fulfilling. I had no passion. I could no longer, dread Monday and cheer on Friday. And look, I fell back into very much a teaching role, a childhood dream in a totally different light. And so I just want everybody to know that you have that innate nudge, that passion, that thing that lights you up. And you can definitely, whether you want that to be a hobby or living, you can do that.
Awesome. So you went to school at Larry A. Ryle High School in Union, Kentucky, home of the Raiders. What are some of your best memories from there?
So I'm actually from Colorado, but I did live in Kentucky, middle school through college. To be honest, I hated Kentucky pretty much the entire time I lived there. It's just hard coming from Colorado. I'm a big Denver Broncos. I love a dry climate. I was yanked out of everything I knew in 8th grade. That's a tough time for a kid.
Yeah.
But what I do love about Kentucky, my brother's still there and my niece. It is beautiful, the horse racing and rolling hills, but it's a fine place to visit. I was happy to leave.
So you graduated from Northern Kentucky University with a bachelor's in communication and marketing in 2007, and you went back to Colorado. You got a job in Denver as a junior paralegal, and then you went going to paralegal school. What led you to that decision, to go that route early on in your career?
I think it was my mom. She always thought I would be an excellent attorney. I'm very passionate. I'm very driven. I'm blunt. I just have this fire behind me. And I forget what movie I watched. What was it? Well, I forget which legal one, but I was like, oh, that's exciting. Maybe that is something I could do. So I got the opportunity for that company that I was working for to go to paralegal school. I did it in an 18 months, going to nights and summers. And I'm so glad I didn't go to law school, because for me, our legal system, I didn't find a lot of justice, is what I'm trying to say. I worked in personal injury litigation. I also worked in securities law, but it really was just like who has bigger money. And I just didn't find a lot of justice. So that wasn't for me. However, I think something that would have been interesting and exciting would be like mergers and I can't get that word out. Acquisitions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or like copyright, trademark, that kind of stuff, business related, might have been more fun, but that wasn't my path.
How do you use running as a form of meditation?
Oh my gosh. And look, we all have a thing that we can zone out and create presence. And ultimately, that's what meditation is. That's what mindfulness is. Quieting the noise, the mental chaos, and creating presence. And for me, again, goes back to when I was a young girl, I think like 8 years old, elementary school. I used to literally just, bye mom, I'm going for a run. And for me, I've done long distances. I've ran marathons and done triathlons and many other things, but I love it because it challenges me. I have to push through that discomfort normally for me. And I'm a runner. those first 4 miles are uncomfortable. I'm not in stride. I don't want to be there.
Right.
But the runner's high on the end of it, and it's such a metaphor for life, right? There's a lot of resistance we have going towards the things that we're going to evolve and grow. But you just have to get started, and you will get in stride. You will get in flow. I've had epiphanies, business ideas come to me, just a lot of things because I'm so present. And that's how we get the downloads.
Awesome. After being in the paralegal world, for a little over, I believe, 4 years, you went to work for Antero Resources and stayed with them close to 5 years. Besides figuring out that you did not want to be in corporate America, what most did you learn in your time there?
You know what? For me, it really was an opportunity to be the light you wish to, be the change you wish to see in this world. And the company culture sucked. They didn't really care about employees. And I know a lot of people face that. I actually am working with somebody right now about bringing in mindset coaching for corporate wellness and changing the corporate culture. But ultimately, it was my choice. I could go to work every day and bitch and complain and be like everybody else. And this is what I chose, I was the girl walking down the hallways, giving people high fives, making it light and fun, making it the best, because that's the opportunity we all have in every situation. The only control you have is you. And it was on me. And I also was a manager. I have a team of 5 admins at the time, and I needed to be an example and a leader for them.
So did your people look at you differently because you were such that positive person and high fiving? Because, as you and I know, a lot of people are not used to that in today's culture, in today's world.
Yeah. I mean, I was fun, but I also realized I had to be authentically me. I didn't want to fall down to the vibe of others. It was about bringing a new energy, bringing a new light, making it fun, because otherwise, if you're spending 40 plus hours of your week being miserable, that is also affecting other areas of your life.
Absolutely.
So
you said, quote, surround yourself with high vibe people on your journey. If you become the average of those you spend the most time with, choose wisely, unquote. Why is that so important?
Well, because thoughts become things, and we are products of our environment. We are products of our environment from conditioning and programming as children, good and bad. You are products of environment think about if you are hanging out with people that are miserable and negative and making, 60 grand a year, you're going to be right in that bubble. However, if you're hanging out with people that are intentional and mindful and think bigger and have high energy, and you're going to become that as well. So again, it's deciding, what life do you want to live?
How important is it to stay away from toxic people?
Again, this is interesting because I was on somebody's podcast yesterday, and she wrote a book about something to do with staying away from toxic people. And I don't point the finger and blame other people. And this has taken practice, but I really try to have so much compassion for other people, because if people are, quote, toxic or negative, they're so freaking miserable. I want to let them know that there is another way. And I don't let them, this is when boundaries come in, and there are ways to literally, like, quote, protect your energy, protect your bubble. But I, of course, have some negative people in my life, but I choose how much time I spend with them. And again, I always try to change the subject. Tell me something you're grateful for. Well, how's that working out for you? And I try to make light and fun of it, because I'm not going to be that toxic energy.
That's a wonderful way to engage there. I haven't, a lot of people don't look at it from that perspective, but that's awesome that you do that. And it's wonderful. And you're right. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It's June of 2017 and you leave Artel Resources, and with just a couple of months, you start Heather Hakes LLC. You said, quote, I didn't have a plan at the time, but knew there had to be more to life than, as you said earlier, dreading Monday and cheering on Friday, week in, week out, unquote.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind at that time?
honestly, to quit corporate, there was so much fear, right? We like stability. We are creatures of habit. It is hard to leave the known. But I also followed that intuitive nudge, the whispers within that I just couldn't. It was like death to my soul to go to work every day. And that's not a way of living. So I did. I took a leap of faith, quit my job. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. And I talked myself into it. Here's a way if somebody finds themselves in this situation, I don't care if it's a relationship, it's a job, a city, whatever, you find dissatisfaction, talk yourself into possibility. So all I did was, okay, the worst case scenario is that I quit my job, it doesn't work out, and I can always get another job. I knew with my education and my skill set, and there are plenty of jobs out there, I could always get another job.
Right.
That's how I talked myself into it. I never planned to be where I'm at currently today. I just knew I wanted to live life on my terms. I didn't know what it looks like. And again, that's what I want to offer people. You do not have to know the how, you have to know the what. And what I love is we don't attract what we want, you attract what you are. So again, if you're sitting in a space of, and I deal with this a lot with people, if you're sitting in a space of not having clarity, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, procrastination, those characteristics are not going to get you the life you desire. It's some humility, it's a lot of self-accountability, but it's just choosing you want more for yourself. So ultimately, to answer your question, I was allowing life to happen for me. I had already booked my yoga teacher training in Bali before I quit my job. That way, like taking a month's vacation, I knew work would never allow that. So I knew I would have to quit in order to go. But it was on that journey and that trip, like the book download came to me. And then I was part of this online community. That's how I got into podcasting. And this was all just for fun at first. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually really good at this. I love talking about this. Why don't I look into coaching? And then again, I mean, everything just was happening, and the resources I need, the programs, the coaches, I've invested a lot in my own coaching. And that's how I got to today.
That was a really interesting yoga trip. I understand that you thought it was one kind of yoga and it was another.
Oh my God. You really did your research and homework on me. I've never had someone. Yeah. First of all, at that time, I was definitely newer to yoga, and I didn't like yoga in a studio. I felt suffocated and trying to breathe at their level, and the movement. It wasn't mine. But when I did paddleboard yoga, sup yoga, something about being in nature, on the water, the flow and the ease of it, I loved. And I learned that's when I was like, oh, I want to be a paddleboard yoga teacher, sup yoga. And I learned, well, you have to get your 200-hour before. Anyway, again, long story short, I simply found a retreat center in Bali that the dates worked. It was 200-hour. And I went, and you're right. That's hilarious. Ignorance is bliss. It was Ashtanga, which is a very advanced form of yoga. And, nothing like jumping in head deep, but I got through it. I grew a lot through that, because that was definitely struggle and outside of my comfort zone. And I ended up getting my sup yoga cert.
In my mind, there are no coincidences, and that happened for a reason, because
yeah.
it helped you grow and it made you even stronger today.
Yeah.
One of the people that you worked with in your coaching said of you, quote, "Prior to our coaching, I was very negative in my self-talk and I was lacking clarity and vision. I started to see things change almost immediately," unquote. Beating ourselves up all the time, obviously is detrimental to any kind of positive growth and change, isn't it?
I call that the internal tug of war. It literally is a boxing match inside your head, you against you. And I've experienced it, and I still do, but it's just a much lighter tone than it used to be. But yes, we tend to be our biggest critic, beating ourselves up, talking ourselves out of an extraordinary life into the self-doubt. I'm not enough. I'm unworthy. I'm not capable. Nobody will love me, on and on. And literally, it's just the biggest problem most people have is an undisciplined mind.
It definitely is. I mentioned that you specialize in helping people, quote, get out of their own way, unquote.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you do that with your coaching? A few ways.
Okay, you're right. I shout from the rooftops, get out of your own way. And I have to tell you, in my industry, and actually in any business, you know how they walk you through your ideal client. What is your avatar? You got to come up with the demographics and like paint this picture of some made up person. You want to know who my avatar is? My ideal client? It's literally me. It's me last week. It's me 5 years ago. And I'm talking directly to myself at that time period. And that's why it resonates and connects, because we're all connected. We all have these universal problems: self-doubt, feeling unworthy, won't be loved. Tony Robbins talks about that.
Right.
But that's how I resonated and made it feel so real, because I'm literally talking to myself and understand how much struggle and pain and what it's like to be in that funk on a hamster wheel, procrastination. Oh my God, imposter syndrome. I've experienced all of that, but I had to, so I could be where I'm at to help others. So your question was, what are the different things? I have many different tools and techniques depending on where where their block is, right? If their block, a lot of people have that financial block. They don't have clarity, which is 100% fear-based. If it's procrastination and habits, again, that's a symptom of a much deeper rooted problem. And what I'm really good at and what I love, because I study it, I don't do surface level stuff. Like, we're not going to go mow the grass. We're going to pull the weeds and plant new seeds. I help people understand how they got to where they are today, understanding your mental programming, the conscious versus subconscious mind, and then how to create the clarity, this new picture, this new vision, that roadmap. And then it's the tools and techniques on creating consistency and repetition to get there. That's what this is about. It's actually pretty simple. It's just not necessarily easy.
Right. Another quote of yours is, quote, without having a strong why, you can't build those good habits and the mindset muscle to get you where you want to go. When you know the what and the why, you can allow the how to show up, unquote. If you don't have that why, you're just going through the motions, and the how is never going to happen, is it?
Right. So how I can talk about that, like in a business sense for me, if I make it about me and I sit in the self-doubt and the procrastination and imposter syndrome, when I sit there, I'm not going to have leverage. I'm not going to have momentum. When I shift my focus away from me, and my focus is on helping those individuals who are in that funk, in the rut, and because I've worked with some amazing clients who've had huge shifts and breakthroughs, and that is my driver. That is my why. So here's my why. If I don't show up and do the work and create content, I can't reach those people, and their struggle will continue. And I'm telling you, I have dozens and dozens of DMs, and there's so much struggle and suffering out there. But here's what I want people to know. And this message came to me when I did ayahuasca, and I believe it wholeheartedly, and I've experienced it. All suffering is self-imposed, and all suffering starts in the mind.
That's awesome. And that's true.
Yeah.
Within just, 1 year of starting your own business, you published your first book, Take the Leap, How I Quit Corporate and Found My Happy Place. Tell us a little bit about your book and why you decided to write it.
Again, I think that kind of comes from childhood. I've always loved writing. I still love journaling. I'm a pen to paper, very kinesthetic. I need to touch and feel. And for me, honestly, I share my journey from contentment to fulfillment. It was almost therapeutic for me, because at that time, not too much before I published the book, I walked away from my engagement 2 months before the wedding. I had quit my job. I got my own coaching. So I really had hit, for me, my rock bottom. I was gaining weight. I was numbing out with food and alcohol. Like, I was in a shitstorm. And so that book is my journey and the lessons I learned along the way, and the teachers, and the attitude of gratitude, and just that we have so much more available to us than most people have tapped into.
To go one step further with, you mentioned about hitting, your own rock bottom. You did that, I think, when you're just 30 years old. And, I love that you said this. You said, quote, "It's about turning your own mess into your message," unquote.
Mm.
You described a little bit about your mess, but if you go maybe just a little bit deeper, how did you get yourself out of it?
I think for me, it really, I chase societal norms, what we are conditioned and programmed to do. And I really want to highlight, if you don't understand your conditioning and programming, you cannot change it. But especially the Western culture is, you go to college, you get a degree, you climb the corporate ladder, you get married and have this home and travels and all this material stuff, and then you will be happy. And I got to the point that I chased the societal norms. I had everything that was supposed to make me happy. I gotten engaged, I had the house, lots of travel, I was successful for myself, and I was miserable. I wasn't happy, I wasn't fulfilled. And that was my wake up call. We will all have our wake up call. Some people, it might be bankruptcy, it might be divorce, it might be losing a job or a health scare. But it's like, you don't need to wait until you have that rock bottom. If at any point you have some dissatisfaction, that is your indicator to, maybe I should make some shifts. Maybe I should change my life. Here's a perfect example. I would never give anyone's name. And this guy is not out of the ordinary. But this guy reached out to me. He's miserable. He's in this loveless marriage. And of course, he's afraid to walk away because he'd have to, quote, give her half. And he's 64 and he's like, I want to retire. And so I asked him, I was like, all right, if you have 20, 30 more years, you can always make more money, but you really want to live a life of mediocrity, going through the motions, pretty dissatisfied for the rest of your life? And how many people are sitting in those shoes, afraid to make change? Here's the thing, you can't have that life you dream of if you don't let go of what's not serving you. And it might be ending a relationship. But if money is the thing that's keeping you there, God, that's awful, right?
Right.
And that pains me, but it's like, I would never talk somebody into living their best life if they want to sit in that pain and suffering, because that's what they think they deserve. And really, that's what it comes down to, thinking this is all there is. And there's not. There's so much more.
You said, quote, "You can choose," and this goes to exactly what you just said, "You can choose to end your suffering this moment. For most, it takes a great deal of pain and suffering to ignite change in your life, to say no more. I can no longer go on living life like this. You don't have to wait. You can choose the moment. Stop playing small and remember who you are," unquote. And you also said, quote, "Nothing in your life will change until you change," unquote. Those are really powerful statements, Heather.
Yeah.
Does that start with someone just making a decision?
Well, I honestly think the first step to any change is becoming aware. So really, awareness is key. Once you become aware, then it is about that decision, a commitment, a choice. Look, let's talk about somebody who health wise, right? I had a client, and when he came on board, part of my discovery process, I really need a vet. I need to know if this is the right coaching program for this individual. And I simply asked a question. I said, if somebody is overweight, let's say 100 pounds overweight, and this is my only question, is it possible that they could lose that 100 pounds? Is it possible? I'm asking you.
Oh,
Is it?
absolutely. I've done it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So that was my only question, because I want to know from that individual, do they think change is possible? And he was like, well, it's possible, but it'd be really hard. Well, nobody said change was easy. That's why most people don't do it, but it's possible. So I don't care if you're currently in financial woes, relationship woes, health woes. It literally doesn't matter the area of life. Change is possible, but you've got to choose it.
And you got to want it badly. Just like you
Yeah.
asked me that question, and not to boast on myself, but I went from, on March 29th of 2021, I was 403 pounds. On March 29th of 2022, I was 212.6, and lost that much weight in 1 year without surgery.
Yeah.
and was
You
just committed.
decided.
Yes.
And obviously, I imagine you had to be thinking different. You had different emotions and clearly different habits. And you must have had a strong why. But look, like 200 pounds in a year, that's phenomenal. And congrats to you.
Thank you.
But the same thing, whether it's weight loss or I know so many people in a shit ton of debt. 100% you can get out of debt. You got yourself into that mess. You definitely can get yourself out. And it doesn't
Absolutely.
have to be through struggle and efforting. And I had a conversation with a guy today. His wife believes an entrepreneur needs to work, bust their ass. This was his words, bust their ass 14 to 16-hour days at first to get ahead. 100%, if you believe that to be true, that will be true for you. But that is not the only way.
You know, you said your vision is to help you learn to unlearn all the false beliefs holding you in fear, lack of limitation.
Yeah.
We all have ingrained patterns of behavior that, started usually at an early age, don't we?
Yeah, so I'll give a very high level overview because this is what I study. It really is the neuroscience, understanding our mental programming, how to rewire. From third trimester of pregnancy up until age 7, we're literally sponges. We're just like hanging out in theta brainwaves. We're taking everything in. There's no analytical mind yet. There's no logical reasoning, none of that yet. We take in everything as fact. We don't remember most of that period, right?
Right.
Up until age 7. But depending on what you saw in your home environment, your community, maybe at church, whatever organizations you're part of, you took in everything as fact up until around age 7. After that, then you can start questioning and whatever. But the point is, those are what I call the weeds. If you have weeds in your subconscious that, especially around money, a lot of people have struggle around money. You have to understand that was just your conditioning and programming from mom and dad. And they got it from their mom and dad. Think about, like, I have a GMA that comes from the Great Depression. She has a lot of fear around money. She actually has a lot of wealth, but she still to this day has a lot of fear around money. And I can see it standing back. She had 3 girls, one of which is my mom. My mom went the total opposite. She's very abundant mindset, very giving, where I can see her 2 sisters definitely live in that lack of scarcity and taught their kids. So the point is, there's no fault here. There's no judgment. There's no blame. It's just becoming aware. So if you are having consistent problems in relationships, maybe you weren't taught how to have a healthy relationship or what love truly is. Money too, right? If you're just getting by, you have to understand that you're programming. And until you become aware and rewrite it, new narratives, there's tons of different ways to go about this. That's how you create change. Because look, even for you, if you don't deal with your root causes why you binge eat and lack of exercise, this is amazing. You can lose 200 pounds, but if you don't deal with those root causes, that weight's going to come back, right? We all know yo-yo dieters.
Yep.
There's no quick fix, and it's not surface level. Stop mowing the grass. You got to pull the weeds.
That's exactly right. Because, all these diets that you see on TV, they all work if you follow the program, but they don't teach you what to do when you get off of those diets. And so it's almost like you have to almost stay on them forever if they're going to really work forever for you, because if not, you're going to fall back into your same patterns.
It's a Band-Aid. And that's why I do not Band-Aid problems. There isn't a quick fix. I'm not going to come in and like blow smoke up your ass. I'm very honest. We do the work. And that's what it's about, because I want you to have lifelong sustainable change, not a quick fix.
I really like this quote. It says, much of society is living in survival mode, fight or flight mentality. It's very fear-based, which you've talked about, and creates a lot of mental chaos. And it's why you experience all the stress and tension and struggle in your life, unquote. You said there is another way. What is that way for most people?
Okay, so it's literally a 180. And again, this comes down to, we've just created habits and conditioning. Depending on your age, you have how many decades of experience of this kind of way. How do you change anything? Through consistency and repetition. But again, remember, awareness is key, and then painting that new vision. So the big thing is, because most society is living in that stress, fight or flight, and stress creates a lot of chaos. I think of it as static. If you are static and it's that tension, it's like when I'm stressed, I don't really experience too much of it anymore. But when I've been stressed, very tight in my chest, very shallow breathing, it feels horrible. We know how it feels. So, how do you stop that habit? Stress is a habit. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches it about creating brain and heart coherence. You have to calm the mind. You have to connect and like get back into your body because we're so disconnected from our body. When you create that brain and heart coherence alignment, you can do this through meditation, sitting in stillness, walking in nature. When you create that calm and peace within, now you have a clear signal. Now you can receive downloads or answers to the questions you're having. Do I this job or this one? Do I go right? Do I go left? In a stressed state, you can't receive the clarity and the information. When you create that calm and peace, again, many different modalities, that's how you can connect and have the flow and ease, and life doesn't have to be a struggle.
Another student of yours said, quote, hands down, she will help you get through anything that is blocking you and keeping you from moving forward, unquote. I believe that, some of the things blocking us are conscious, but some are unconscious too, aren't they?
Oh, well, if you want to go to the conscious, subconscious mind, anything that's conscious that you're, quote, aware of is only 5% of the picture. So imagine an iceberg. That's only a tip of the truth, right? The problem. 95% of who you are today is in your subconscious programming. That's why you've got to shine a light on the darkness. You've got to become aware of that. It's taking inventory and really painting that new picture, because that conscious mind, you can't override 95%, like in one step, in one moment.
You had a public service announcement that I can really relate to. It said, quote, no one is coming to save you. Your life is 100% your responsibility. The first step is creating change in your life is becoming aware of your own bullshit, unquote. Love that. Yeah. We all have a lot of bullshit, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I know I'm very direct and blunt, and I'm not for everyone, but the people that can handle it really appreciate it, because some people need that, right? Like, I can't hold you and coddle you. You need to be called out. And I still do it loving and compassionately. Maybe you couldn't hear it in that, but it really does come down to many people sit in the blame game. You are not a victim of your reality. You are the creator of your reality. And when you stop blaming your boss for your progress, or the government and the economy for your wealth, and blaming whoever for your happiness, when you just turn around, have self-compassion, look yourself in the mirror and be like, damn, all right, I was mistaken. That was false thinking. I no longer want to repeat this. And then choosing through self-love and just wanting more, that's how you can create change. But it is humility. It's a lot of self-accountability. And that's hard for people, right? To be like, wait, I created. Yes. Michael, question. At some point in your weight loss journey, and maybe where you got to where you were, was there blame or victimhood at you were numbing out, right? You were seeking comfort.
Right.
You didn't want to deal with emotions or whatever was going on. And that's what we do. And yours was food. A lot of people numb out with alcohol, and we know how ugly that is.
Yeah.
A lot of people numb out with overspending, scrolling on social. We all have our vice. But until you no longer, I'm sure that was very uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it affected your sleep. We have no idea what was going on. But you obviously hit your breaking point enough to lose 200 pounds in a year. That's amazing.
I got on the scale that morning, March 29th, looked at the scale, saw it said 403, and I literally said, F this, I'm done. Wow. And that day made the decision.
Yeah. I just got chills. And that's, oh my gosh, I love that. And thank you for sharing, because literally I had something last week, not to go down this rabbit hole because we could talk for hours about dating, but I had a scenario last week and I literally told one of my girlfriends, I was like, no more. That's it. I was just tired of attracting flaky men. Let's just, at a very high level, let's just call it that. No more. And that's all it happened, was a decision in that moment, no more. And I'm telling you how quickly it all fell away. And then I met somebody a few days later, and I've been on a couple dates, whatever, but that's all it takes. One decision, one moment.
Absolutely. So I mentioned that you also have a podcast. It's called Mind Over Matter. Tell us a little bit about it, and a few of the guests that you've had on there too.
Oh my gosh. So I just released episode 456. So
Wow.
I've been doing it for a minute.
Yeah.
I love podcasting. I'm sure similar to you, I've gotten to connect with people all over the world. So many people. We are sitting in the space of wanting to help, wanting to share our message. Even if I help one person today, that's what it's about. But ultimately, Mind Over Matter, I do 2 episodes a week. Mondays is just me, Wednesdays an interview. And I interview people, all kinds of backgrounds. I've had the millennial therapist and holistic psychologist. I've had endurance athletes, money mindset coaches. No matter the area, it all comes down to mindset. I love hearing other people's perspectives, a holistic way of being and thinking, business coaches. I mean, just all kinds of backgrounds, because it all comes down to one thing: your mindset. Your consciousness is the creator of your external reality.
How can people find your podcast?
Yeah, it's just Mind Over Matter with Heather Hakes. I'm on all the platforms.
Awesome. This past March, you did something truly awesome and inspirational personally for yourself. You completed a 4x4x48 challenge, which means you ran 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours for a total of 48 miles. That's phenomenal. Tell us a little bit about that and how you trained for it.
All right. So that's a David Goggins thing. I know a lot of people love Goggins. And here's the thing. I read his book, Can't Hurt Me. I can appreciate and respect that man because he has a mindset of steel. He was a SEAL. He's accomplished amazing feats. However, I do not agree with masochism. He likes self-inflicted pain. He literally gets off on it. He shares that. So I do not believe in that. The reason I did that endurance challenge, again, it's something Goggins does every year. I love pushing myself. I love that discomfort. And honestly, joke's on me, I didn't think it would be that hard because I'm a runner, and I was like, 4 miles, that's nothing. But here's the thing. I started on Friday night at 6 p.m. So 6 p.m., 10 p.m., 2 a.m. When I had to get up for that 2 a.m., when my alarm went off at 1:45, I was like dazed and confused. Why is my alarm going off? What is happening? Why am I doing this? And had I not publicly announced I was doing that, 100% I would have gone to bed, back to bed. And that's why accountability is huge and why people pay for coaches, right? We hold you accountable.
Right.
So anyway, the point of that, and let me tell you, one of the legs, and here's the thing, you don't have to run 4 miles every 4 hours. You have to complete 4 miles every 4 hours. And one of them, I gave myself some grace and I allowed myself to walk. And I think that was that Saturday night, probably like my 2 a.m. one. I was so tired. I was in quite a bit of pain at that point. And I walked all 4 miles. And guess what? It was like only an extra 20 minutes or something. So again, even in that, it's like, it's okay to pause. It's okay to rest. Just don't quit. And it's not about how fast you can get there. It's just about getting there, right? There is no destination on this life journey because at some point we're not going to wake up. It truly is, as cliche as it seems, and now I really understand it. It's about the journey, who you become. And again, the point of that 4x4x48 for me was the mental discipline, perseverance, that negative mindset wanting to talk me out of greatness. I had to like overcome that BS, my belief systems. And I was super proud when it was over.
That's awesome. You said, quote, "I am lucky to have my mom in my life. She's my biggest cheerleader and mentor and introduced me to personal development when I was a teen. I've always been curious and an observer, and this has led me to where I am today," unquote. I know you talked a little bit about her, but tell us a little bit more about your mom.
thank goodness, I love how Peter Crone says that everybody in our life, people and circumstances come into our life to reveal where we're not healed. And my mom has been such a great mentor, but she's been such a great mentor because she started her own personal development journey. I think when she was, I think late 20s, early 30s. So whether or not I was born or even a baby, because we all had things in childhood or in life that don't feel good, right? And so she obviously dove into it and then became a conscious parent and wanting, I think all parents want more for their children than they had.
Right.
And my dad, I mean, he's also taught me a lot, but my dad is also very much in that 3D, he worked hard, provided for the family, where my mom is much more in that feminine energy of flow and ease and connecting to source and more of that spiritual background, which I love. And I kind of marry science and spirituality because that's what feels good to me and that's what resonates. So yeah, I mean, they've both played a big role in my life, but my mom has definitely guided me more in that direction.
What are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life?
How much time do you have? If I could just high level, the most important lesson is like to trust. We all have our internal compass, intuition, a guidance. And when you quiet the mind, you can tap into that. So trust those nudges, trust yourself, and you literally can have, be, and do anything you want in this lifetime.
How can people find you and follow you on social media?
I'm on all the platforms. I think the best place to start is simply my website, heatherhakes.com. Love Instagram, big fan there. But I have a YouTube channel. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all of them.
That's awesome. You have such a great story, and you're proof if you want change badly enough in your life and are willing to make the sacrifices like you did, you can have it. So I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you again.